like a blue, a clear, a pink, and I think they even have like milk containers. And I think it fits 2 sets of dice, so they hold your dice. So it holds 2 sets of dice in it. And I'm sorry, but I was like, do I need it? No. Do I want it? Absolutely. This episode is sponsored by Druid City Games.
It's time for the Sultan Sass podcast, when we share our love for the wonderful world of board games with you, whether you're a gaming veteran or just starting your tabletop journey. Welcome to episode 14. I'm Suzanne.
And I'm Mandi.
Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Lovely to have you here. Lovely to see you too, Ms. Mandi.
Yes, you too.
And folks, I wanted to start off by mentioning thanks so much to Justin in the guild for talking about the large group async games, because I really liked that question and
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about it, and I wish more of y'all had chimed in, because I really want to know more of these games for conventions or events or things like that. But
Right.
Justin wrote in and mentioned that they actually have a office game of Scrabble going on all the time, which, Mandi, you're like a Scrabble pro, right? With you and your mom?
She keeps kicking my butt. But yeah, Scrabble is great. Well, it's like the app, because I play the app too, right? And it's asynchronous, so I don't see why it wouldn't work well in person. I think that's a great idea. I cannot believe I didn't say Scrabble. Oh my goodness.
Is it for shame? Well, Justin's got your back.
Thank
And then
you.
they also mentioned that games like Quinto, which of course is a roll and write,
Mm-hmm.
could play. And then I have to admit, Justin, if you're out there listening, feel free to chime back in on this one. You bring up Railways of the World and
Oh.
working in teams. And I'm like, yeah, man, I was like, okay, Justin, I'm
Okay.
gonna hang with you here. But and I get it, but I also don't.
Yeah, we
But
more
if you
context
had an
there.
option to pull that off, just from like a complexity thing, I think maybe Mandy, it's just I'm making broad assumptions about what office environments are like and how many people are really, quote unquote hashtag gamers. That just seems like a hard one to even teach people so they could jump
Yeah.
in on it. But
Hmm.
I wanna hear more about this. How you would execute Railways of the World in an office kind of async thing. That one,
Yeah, me
I'm
too.
I'm trying to go on the ride with you there, Justin. But I love the Scrabble idea, and thank you so much for chiming in from our question that popped
Yeah,
up in episode 13 last episode. I really appreciate you
fantastic.
writing in. And Mandi,
Yes.
what's new and exciting with you? What's been going on in your life?
It's been slow, everybody. Oh my goodness, I had my nephews over, and they had to help me out in Uncharted there, because I don't understand why games need to have things driving in them or using a sea-doo in a water and then having to shoot explosive barrels while getting shot at. Not a fan. So I
You
gotta
still
say,
struggling with that, huh?
the game itself, I love it. I don't like that sort of thing, and that's a reason why I stopped playing. What was it? Arkham Knight. It was like literally all about the Batmobile. Absolutely terrible. Sorry if it's just not for me. But loving the game so far. But anyway, I digress. I did finish some other games, and I may have mentioned them. I'm not sure. A Memoir Blue, and this is on Steam and Xbox. I'm not sure if it's on PlayStation. I did play it on Xbox. It's on Xbox Game Pass, and it's different. I don't even know if I would call it a game, more of a like interactive. They call it an interactive poem, and it's about a person or woman who's an athlete, and there's like they're looking at their story and that love that they have for their mother. So it leads you through a few kind of little puzzles, but then it actually ties into the story about her life with her mother and like coming back to her mother. And it has like these vignettes in her life, and some of them are about different victories in her life, some of them are about heartbreak or sacrifice, and then it leads to that that deep love that she shares with her mom. So it's more of like an interactive play versus a
Wow.
game. Yeah, it's really good, and it is actually on PlayStation and Switch. I did verify that. Um, it's short. I don't remember the hours, but I think it's like a 4 to 5 hour game, if that. It might even be like 3 hours. And I didn't know where it was going at first, but I enjoyed it for what it was. So if you're just looking for something that is more of like a poetic type interactive game, I think you would like it. And has a bit of a puzzle in it as well.
Hmm.
So that is A Memoir Blue. And the other game, I didn't finish it, but I've been playing it, and I think we had mentioned this, Suzanne, is Coffee Talk. And I
Is that like where you're running a cafe or something? Or is
yeah,
that okay.
that's when you're running a coffee, like a cafe type place where people come in and literally talk to you. And I played it on Xbox. I know it's on Steam as well. And that's literally it. People coming in, having interactions, and you're, helping them, like a bartender that you listen into their woes, and then they'll ask for a specific order of coffee. I'm not a coffee drinker, so this is all new to me, but they'll be like, I like this. And then you have to remember when they come in, like what they ordered before and try and make it. Otherwise, they're like, what's wrong with you? Like, you're not listening to or paying attention to me. So it's more of one of those like click and play, listen type adventures with choices and making coffee. So it sounds kind of boring, but it's actually really interesting. And I think they summarize it as a talking simulator where you're listening to fantasy
Okay.
inspired modern people's
Interesting.
problems and helping them by serving up a warm drink or two. So
Nice.
it's a story type game. So if you're into that, I definitely think you'll enjoy it. So I'm not done, but I've been enjoying what I've seen of it so far. And I do find sometimes the drink the person asked for kind of is like their personality. So maybe
Mm,
that's just me.
hmm.
So that
Interesting. What
good
does
to
that
know.
say about my drink?
Like,
Huh.
yeah,
I don't
straws.
want to say it now because people are going to judge me. I'll have to think about it, and then we talk about it next episode.
Right. Maybe I'll have finished it by then. So that's Coffee Talk, Xbox, and Steam. Again, I'm not sure if it's on PlayStation or
Cool.
Switch.
Well, of course, I try to really be cognizant of conflicts of interest
Mhm.
and things like that with my work in restoration, and of course, talking about games here on the show. And so, here's my disclaimer: I work with restoration games, and so you don't have to believe anything I say about it. But maybe the only digital game I've been playing lately is Unmatched Digital Edition because that just had
Oh,
its full release last week from the time
right.
of recording. And of course, this is, the fighting game where you can pit Sinbad against Alice in Wonderland against Little Red Riding Hood and that kind of thing. And it's bananas and super fun. And well, I think it's fun, but I'm biased.
No, it's good. It's
And
fun.
the digital edition came out. So it's on Steam, iOS, Android, and Nintendo Switch. And honestly, Mandy, the thing that I want you to check out is one of the fun things about doing digital implementations of a board game
Yeah.
is you can kind of mess with them just a little bit. So the way that Restoration chose to mess with Unmatched Digital is offering painted minis essentially, right? You play the board game and you get a
Ooh.
miniature, but in a digital sphere you can paint them, right? And
Right.
they look like they're painted figures instead. And if you can paint it, well then you can do other paint jobs too. And so one of the release sets that you can add on to your game is an 80s set of skins. So it's like
I love
Medusa
it.
has like purple hair and like those old like neon green and purple patterns on her dress and things like that. They're like they're
I
hilarious. So
love it.
I want you to take a look, my fashion maven, right? Because they're
Well,
they're
now I
pretty
need to see
awesome.
because I was playing it hardcore for a while. I'm really bad at it, by the way. Even on like the easiest, I'm terrible, but I really enjoy
Yeah.
it. So I have it. I had to go back to Paperback Adventures, which you got me back on there from your last
So
discussion. So now I'll
good.
switch over to
So
Unmatched
good.
Digital.
There you go. We'll have to make sure you get the 80s skins for sure. So yeah,
Yes.
Unmatched Digital. But again, I work with restoration, so there you go. All right, but companies I don't work with are running crowdfunding campaigns right now.
Yes.
Mine doesn't start for a few weeks. So
Yes.
Mandy, what did you I know you debated about bringing this to the table, but you could not help yourself.
I know, and I'm sorry they got me because it was so cute, and I know it's game related, but it's not a game. So the, the crowdfunding campaign that I was looking at is called Bubble Tea Dice Box. Pour in your dice. Get it?
Yeah,
Anyway,
I
yeah, I
get
know.
it. Yeah, yeah.
And this ends on Sunday, April the 2nd. It retails for about, I think one container is about $14 Canadian, and three containers are about 35 Canadian, and then there's shipping on top of that. And it literally is, they look like, how do you describe it? Like a tumbler, but with like a straw. Like, when you go to get a drink and it has the cover and the
Yeah,
case of the
like a
straw.
tumbler. Yeah, I
Yeah,
call them tumblers,
tumbler.
yeah.
Yeah, and they come in like different patterns. So they have ones that are clear, but then it has little things on it that says "good for you," and like it has dice box, but it looks like a drink, and they come in like a blue, a clear, a pink, and I think they even have like milk containers, and I think it fits two sets of dice, so they hold your dice. So it holds 2 sets of dice in it, and I'm sorry, but I was like, "Do I need it? No. Do I want it? Absolutely, 'cause I finally set up those game shelves in my room. For those that are listening, I didn't have game shelves in my room before, but now I was able to put some Calyxes in, and there are some games behind me, and I feel like I could free up just a little bit of space for some of those dice that are hanging out and I have nowhere to put them in this, and it'd be so cute. So, I mean, I'm a sucker for cute things like this, and they're just
Yes, you
adorable.
are.
Like, there literally is a little thing that says, "Nutrition facts, serving suggestion, 7 dice per adventure," and then it shows all the different dice.
Oh my gourd. All right.
I'm here for
That is
this.
adorable, and
So,
it sounds like it's a very you thing,
right? So
Mandy.
do I need it? No. Do I want it? Yes, I do. So,
Hey,
it
life's too short.
life is too short. I'm definitely I've already backed it. I was like, I just backed for 1, but we all know I'm probably gonna get 3. So that's Bubble Tea, Dice Box, and Sunday, April 2nd.
Okay. Well, shocker, shocker. And actually, Manny, I think you and I were looking at crowdfunding sites together, and it's a little light on games. I mean,
Yeah.
there's things like what the artisan, not artisans, but like the Southern Fairs, like Garfield Games has a game
Yeah,
that's
I thought
running
it
right now and things like that.
yes.
But
Yeah.
it might actually be over by the time this
No, I think
airs.
it's
So
oh, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
yeah. So, but there are some wonderful roll and write print and plays available, and I figured I better call
Yes.
out this one, Rock and Write. Rock and Write. Rock and roll, baby. This is published by Benny Sperling, who's become quite a prolific roll and write
Mhm.
designer, and it ends March 19th. And it's a print and play roll and write game that you can, print at home and use components that you have at home. So a pledge is just to get a copy of the game is just $4.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
I love roll and writes and how affordable they can be.
Absolutely.
So rock and write presumably is like you are a guitarist in a garage band. And I mean, obviously, I like roll and write games anyway. But one thing I like that Benny has done here is that Benny continues to kind of push the edges of the format and play and experiment there. So there's two phases in
Mhm.
rock and write. And in the first phase, you're using dice to fill in chords on your player sheet and you grow your star power or something like that. And then in the second phase of the game, you're basically putting on a performance using a standard deck of cards. Then there's a little element of like push your luck and trying to outperform the card value with your star power and all this other stuff. So I really love this idea of using dice in one phase and cards in a second phase and how those support and interplay with each other. So it sounds really fun and clever. That's Rock and Write, ends March 19th on Kickstarter.
I'm feeling the theme. I mean, it's a roll and write,
It's
and
a
it's
fun
got
theme.
some like, rock and roll kind of theming. I'm here for it. So I am looking forward to trying that as well.
All right, Mandy. We had some shocking weird alignments with our my game I want to review and your shelves. I don't know how that magic happened,
I just
but let's talk
noticed.
about yeah, let's talk about games we've been playing, shall we?
Absolutely. All right. Well, before we talk about games played, Suzanne, I have to tell you, I gave The Great Split by Horrible Guild a try the other night, and
Yes.
it's so good.
Yay! I'm so
So
glad you
good.
liked it.
I was worried about the whole I Split You Choose can go really well or just really bad. And it was in a good direction. The group I played with. So thank you to my friend Joe, who is part of our game group where we have regular game nights. Joe has been very kind to take some games, learn them, and then we play them together as a group. So much appreciated. But the group really, really, really enjoyed that one. So that's one I'm definitely gonna add to the collection because I don't actually have a lot of I Split You Choose games, and I thought that one held up
Yeah.
quite nicely. So
It's not a super common mechanism in
no.
games, that's for sure. And then, of course, as we've already discussed, like in my review, it does it so well.
Oh, for
I'm
sure.
so glad you liked it.
Yeah.
Yay!
So if you haven't heard Suzanne's review about it, I don't know what podcast number it is. Maybe
Eh,
I'll see if I can insert the little video link here somewhere and you can go and check it out. All
good. I'm
right.
glad you got it.
Yeah, no, thank you. So now I'm going to talk about power plants. I don't know why I had the urge to sing the Power Ranger song, but I don't think it works here. Go, go, power plants. No, it doesn't work. I tried. Okay. This is designed by Adam E. Dalton. Art is by Apolline Etienne, and it's published by Kids Table Board Games. It's for 1 to 5 players, plays in about 30 minutes. Oh, look at that. I wrote price and didn't put a price in. Hold, please. Okay, so it's $30 Canadian for the regular version or the regular one. I didn't realize there was a deluxe version, and that's 50 Canadian. So I think we just have, or I just have the basic. I'm not 100% sure, but
I'm pretty sure you have the deluxe if you got the wind tiles.
oh, I did. Okay, so I have the deluxe, which is $50 Canadian plus tax. Everyone, you're in Canada anyway. So in power plants, you are a wizard. I'm about this, and you're growing garden of magical plants with your rivals. And this is where those tiles are going to come in. On each turn, you're going to pick patch tiles from your hand and you're going to add them to this garden, and then you can activate the tile specifically for a plant to power up that specific tile, or potentially power the tiles around the one you've placed. Okay. And this is where it gets interesting because they all have different abilities which can help you but hinder your opponents. The game ends when I believe somebody pulls the last tile out of the bag, and then everybody gets, I think it's equal number of turns. So you're left with one tile remaining. So let's back it up a little bit. So what's going to happen in the game is you end up choosing these tile cards that have different plants on them. They all have different abilities. And this is where I have to lean to Suzanne because my memory is real bad. There's the grow. There are two actions you can take on the cards. And I'm so sorry, my memory is eluding me, but I'll just explain it in the interim. So you have the different flower kind of placards, and they tell you what each one picks. And you're picking those randomly, a
You
certain amount
can
depending on players. Sprout?
grow or activate?
I think it's
Or
grow and sprout or something to that
oh,
effect.
that sounds right. That
Yeah,
sounds right.
grow and
Yeah.
sprout. I think that's how it goes. And so these cards you pick at random, a certain amount of these plant cards, and they all have like colors associated with them based on the tiles, and each of them has different abilities. And they have different ones. They have the plain, like regular basic ones, but they also have the ones that are a little more advanced. So you can decide which ones you want to play with. And each player gets their sprites, not the drink, but like little fairy looking things. I gotta say, not everybody might know what sprite means, but it's magical. So these little wooden meeples that you're gonna get to put on the tiles that we have out in the garden. That you'll be able to use. And some of these flowers, when you activate them, allow you to put a sprite with it when you activate it. Not all, but some. And now there are two things you can do on your turn. You have to choose. That's between which I believe is sprout and grow, and I apologize if I have those wrong. One of them allows you to activate the tile that you've just placed because you have to place your tile out beside tiles that are already out in the garden. Or you can activate the ones around the tile you just placed. And then there's a specific order that happens based on how they are situated in the row of placards of flowers that you had placed earlier in the round. And some of these are really great. They allow you to put more sprites out. You want that because you want majorities in areas because you're going to get points for that. Some are going to put gems on tiles, and you want to, again, be able to have your sprites on those tiles. But some of them allow you to boot other people out because when you place one, if someone's there, oh, you can't share that tile. No, no, no. That person's needs to go, but then yours doesn't go either. Can't go there either unless you have another one to place there based on the action you've chosen. Anyway, you get the idea. So you keep doing that until the game ends. Like I said, last tile dropped in the bag. Everyone gets equal amount of turns. Then at the end, you're going to look at scoring gems that you have. And because I played it solo the first time, this wasn't a thing. But if anybody had captured any of your sprites, you have to pay gems to get them back. I'm like, what kind of chicanery is this?
Yeah, you have to play a gem ransom. It's a little like
And it's not like you can just go, no, it's fine, keep them. You must pay with gems to get them back. But then you're going to get gems for areas that you're in. And also you're going to get points for majority. So if you're the majority in certain areas, and it depends, a first, second, third sort of thing. But obviously being first gets you more points. And that's the general gist of the game. So like I said before, I played it solo, and I've played it with 3 players a couple of times. Solo is not bad for me. I didn't mind this as a solo game. The only issues that I had is like when you had to determine like how far something was. Like in the solo one, it's like you could do this. Like there were a whole list of things that you had to go through when you were placing tiles and like distance. And I'm like, this is too many steps for my brain. So I just want to place it and do the thing. But sometimes it would happen where I don't know if it was like a tiebreaker thing or whatever, but then you'd have to look at, okay, if it's this, do this. If it's not that, then do this. Then do, like, you just had to go through a listing of things. And for me, I just want to place it and get on with my life. So solo is good. It's just for me, I just like things to just be a little bit more direct. I get it. Solo players, I think they'll still enjoy it. the 3-player one, people started getting the rivalry. Whoa. And if they were getting so like I'm like, whoa, calm down. It's supposed to be like a little friendly. My friends who are friendly players were really just going hard, but it wasn't mean, right? That's just the way the game is, and you don't have a lot of space to work with, so you are going to run into other players. So I really enjoyed the powers of the flowers. And or the plants, I should say, but yes.
The power of the plants
The
for
power of the
power
plants.
plans.
Exactly. And I did like the option that you could use a more like complex version of it. So you had options and you could mix those up how you wanted to. So I really appreciated that. I did have the deluxe version, so which I didn't realize. So
You know what, Mandy? I am going to correct myself. I don't think you do because they went on Kickstarter and like I think the deluxe edition has like a really fancy insert, and I don't think.
oh,
Do you have a fancy insert?
I sure don't.
Which means if you have the base game, the production quality is
Then
amazing
it's
because
really
all those
good.
tiles are like beautiful painted wood tiles.
Okay, well then, hey, oh yeah, because it's wooden tiles. You've got your wooden meeples. Like even the quality of the placards for they're like a no, they're not laminated, but they're like a thicker kind of shinier. I can't explain it. It's just not thin paper. Like
They're nice quality card stock.
right, nice
Yeah.
quality cards. So I mean, I can't complain. And you don't necessarily need a player aid in this one, I find, because they do summarize it for you in the rule book, which is nice. Yes, I'm on a thing about player aids. We'll have to talk about that another time. But all the instructions are on the placards for the plant cards. So if you don't know, you can actually just read it, and it's right there for you instead of having to
Well, and
thumb
there is
through
a
the rule
player
book.
aid. There are player aids that have all the
Is
plant
there?
powers on it. Hmm.
That's right. I lied. Oh my goodness. See, I was on my little rant before I even said anything. There is a player aid. I just think that why did
You
I
were
did
thinking of a different game.
can I tell you? I even 100% used it now that I'm thinking about it. Wow, my memory is short. And I was just about to
That's
say,
okay.
player aids. So there you go. I did in fact use the players. That's probably why I found it so easy to follow along. Oh my gosh, I'm on
There
a
you go.
tangent. I'm so sorry, everybody. So this had player aids. Yes, for all the things. I like it. But it was also very clear on the cards for the plants. And they also had it summarized really nicely in the rulebook. So you didn't have to flip through a million pages to find it, which I appreciate. So overall, for me, power plants, I really liked it. It's like gentle rivalry. I don't even know if that's a thing, but I didn't feel like I was being attacked for just being attacked. Like you had to do it in the space you're in, and they did it in a really smart way by allowing you to choose those actions and having that choice. I really like that a lot. So power plants for me was a 2 thumbs up. Yeah, I liked it a lot.
I also really enjoyed it. I played it at 1, 3, and 5,
Okay, so you got the
and I
five
really did
experience.
enjoy it solo. So I really did enjoy this one, and I thought it was, really simple to play solo,
Hmm.
and because of all the different power plants, there's a lot of variability in there. One criticism I have is the graphic design on some of the power plant tiles are very close. So when you're looking at just silhouettes of the plants, like there's two that look like Venus flytraps a little bit, and if you have both of those in the game, you could be when you're playing a game, you could be
Okay.
activating. We had a couple of situations where people would activate a tile according to one power, but the tile itself was actually the other one that looked a little bit similar. I-
Hmm.
It is a criticism, but it didn't really inhibit anything. You just want to be aware of that so you're paying a little extra attention to make sure you're, leveraging the right power.
Did you find the tile color at all not helpful?
There's just one like yeah, because it's like they use a dark background versus a light background on the art. When you
Okay.
looked at it, there's just one pairing that
Oh,
just came
okay. That
across
just
that
didn't.
that just got mixed up
Oh,
a
okay.
few times during a play. But in the grand scheme, it's not a huge deal and didn't interrupt our enjoyment of the game. I do think that when you set up the game, there are 3 different types of plants. There's like morning, noon, and night.
Yes, yes.
And so they do have you seed plants. Like you can randomize, but they do recommend
Sure.
a certain number of plants from each time of day, which helps as well. But yeah, for me, definitely Power Plants is a thumbs up. I really, really enjoyed it. Quick, easy to play,
Yeah,
quick
super
to
quick.
play, like easy to teach, all that good stuff.
You
As Mandy said, a great player aid.
exactly. Oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. I did forget to mention something, and this is with all these types of games where you have to put lots of meeples on one area. It
Mhm.
does get a little overflowing because you have gems and then multiple
It
sprites.
can.
In our
Yep,
game, it happened that way.
got
So
it.
I had a couple times where it was like flowing over. It wasn't terrible because there have been ones that are smaller. Again, a minor gripe. So power plants. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, the Kismet I mentioned earlier is Mandy. On your shelves behind you, I can see that you have a beautiful copy of the game Millefiore out in your shelves facing forward, and
Yeah.
I conveniently am going to be talking about Millefiore
This was
today.
not planned,
Woo!
everybody. Not planned.
Not planned at all. It really wasn't. This is designed by Reiner Knizia with art credited to Stefan Lorenz, and it's published by Schmidt Spiel. I mean, it's a Knizia, right? So who isn't interested? And it does look
Yeah.
beautiful. It's all centered thematically around glass makers and traders and things like that. Traders, Trader, not traitors,
Yeah. Different game. Different
Traitor.
game.
Yeah, different game. And what this is it's almost arguably you could say it's like 6 mini games on a board. So you get a board and everybody gets a glass color, and you get these little plastic tiles that are translucent in your player color. And you got on the big board, there's 6 different areas that you're going to be putting these glass tiles or these diamonds on. And the way you're going to do that is through a card draft. So cards have icons that represent the different areas of the board, and you're going to draft a hand of cards, like I think it's 5. And then after that you're going to play cards to place diamonds in the different zones. Ultimately you're just trying to score a ton of points. It is a Knizia game after all, and each of these 6 zones scores somewhat differently. And of course, once you put a diamond down, you've used that spot, so you're competing with the other players, not for area control necessarily, but for that prime spot. And there is an element of pretty strong element of wanting to be aware of what other players are doing and potentially cutting them off as well, because the scoring compounds heavily in this game, which is an interesting thing. So basically, like in one area, there's when you place a tile, you're going to score like Quirkle for the group that you've completed. It's got that Quirkle or Azul scoring that when you attach a new tile, you rescore the group basically. So the more tiles you add, the more it scores. And there's like a special icon that you double the score of that grouping if you cover that one up. Woo. Then there's an area that like has a little pyramid, and when you create a little triangle of your diamonds in a pyramid, you can score things. There's a boat track where you can move boats down. It's the one place where you're not using a tile. You have a little boat icon and
Hmm.
you're moving down this track, and it will give you bonuses depending on where you end up on, et cetera, et cetera. There's 6 different areas and they all score differently
Right.
by placing your diamond on them. But that compound scoring is really interesting. So you really benefit from understanding that. The first play is a little rough. And the second play, when you're teaching people, new people especially, like, hey, this is going to compound. You really need to pay attention to that. It's important because, boy, somebody can just start running away with it if you guys are
Ooh.
not working as a group to kind of keep each other in check and balance
Right.
because, again, that compound mathematical scoring. Without compound scoring too, though, you're going to count a lot in this game. You'll be counting many, many times every turn. You'll be counting, and the counting only gets more county as you go on because there's more tiles that you have to accommodate on, which is a thing. Um, the game ultimately runs out when somebody runs out of places their last diamond, because not on every turn you might not do that. You might move the ship or something like that, or when you run out of cards. And then you figure out who has managed to be the most countiest and have the most points, and they win the game.
Okay.
I like it. I like it. It's a nice production. It's a lot going on. The board
Mm.
is very, very busy. And the
Oh.
teach is interesting because you have to teach 6 different little micro game rulings, which is fine. I mean, heavier games, but have massive rules teach sessions. But for such a relatively lighter game, it's
Hmm.
interesting to have such a heavy teach as you have to teach each different section.
Oh.
There's also that element of the draft, which is interesting because you get this element of denial as you're drafting cards away as you advance in the game. And if somebody is not on board with paying attention to that, or somebody is not on board with monitoring and keeping this check and balance system in place
Right.
to avoid somebody running away with it, that creates an interesting dynamic as well that can be, quite frankly, a little frustrating, both for you and for the other players. It's like frustrating for the other players if the person that is optimally positioned to stop a runaway doesn't. But then if you're the person in that situation, it's also frustrating for you that you're the one that sometimes kind of has to throw away a turn
Right.
to, take away a spot from somebody who's just scoring, scoring, scoring. So I don't know if I love the way that feels, to be honest.
Hmm.
Um, it's a Knizia, and it feels like a Knizia, and that is neither criticism nor praise. I mean,
Mhm.
I love a lot of Reiner Knizia games. For me, Millefiore is solid mid-tier Knizia.
Okay.
It is laborious for the weight of the game to me. With all of that counting and recounting and compound scoring, there's a few rules idiosyncrasies where you're like, wait, does this count as a connected group or whatever? That happens in all games, so it's not a huge deal. I like Millefiore. I don't love it.
Mhm.
This one's probably not going to stick around my collection. Would I play it again? Yes. It's a, quite frankly, if you haven't played a lot of games like this, maybe you'll like it a little bit more. But I felt like it wasn't showing me anything new. It was just showing me
Right.
things I've done before in a pretty package with a decent production. So yeah, that's Millefiore.
Okay.
It's fine.
It's on my shelf. I haven't played it yet, so I knew it was on the lighter side, but I didn't know much else about it. It just, I mean, I love the color of the box. It looked really nice.
Yeah, it's a
So
beaut. Yeah, it's very got some pretty aesthetics going on. Yeah,
yeah, but now I'm curious to try it. So once I've tried it out, I'll have to see if I'm
revisit.
yes in the same place. All right. Well, next up for me is a game which I have to tell you, never thought I'd like. I know that's the way to start talking about a game.
Honestly, I wasn't sure you would like this one either, Mandy.
See,
Like,
fair
sometimes you say
play.
things like that, I'm like, "Really, Mandy?" But this one, I'm like,
You're
"Yeah,
like,
I would not." If you put a shelf of games up and this was on it, that would not be one I would point to for you instantly.
no, and I would never grab for it because I'd instantly go, "Oh gosh, this looks like programming," or "I have to be fast." All the things that I really bad at and don't love. But tiny turbo cars changed my mind. So it's designed by Gelmar Hack, Alessandro Manuini, Jonathan Panada, Laura Severino, and Julia Tamagni. And it art is by Edu Valls, and the publisher is Horrible Guild. And it plays 2 to 4 players in about 30 to 45 minutes, and it's about $40 Canadian. So I'm just going to be talking about the base game. There are several expansions, but for this, just the base game. So this is a game that definitely has some programming. Yep, my favorite. I'm being sarcastic for those who don't know me. And being quick. That's a thing. Because what's going to happen in this game is every player gets, and I actually had only played it digitally, by the way, before this, so I didn't expect this, but it's a controller. It looks like a game controller, and it's got little, I don't know, chiclet pieces in there. It reminds me of
Yeah,
a
it's like a
game.
sliding it's one of those plastic sliding puzzles that you
Yes,
played as a
like we used to
kid,
play in
right?
the
Yeah.
exactly. I was just about to say that. Those sliding
Oh,
puzzles we played as a kid, and that's exactly what's in there. And it has one, two, three. I think it's 4 lines that are in there. And there's a reason why I'm commenting on how many lines are there. You're only using the 2 lines in the middle to enact your actions, and there are things like going forward, going backward, moving diagonally. I think there's one that like doubles an action, things like that. And you're gonna have a board, which in our case we played on. It looked like a kid's room or some kind of room that you're in that has clothes and things on the floors, which are going to act as obstacles and water spots and will slow you down, or carpets that'll slow you down, things like that. And it's like a kind of like a racetrack. So you're basically trying to get from point A to point B, being the first one and farthest along to do so. And you're going to do that by programming using your little controller. You have little batteries that act as like your life. So don't get all your batteries flipped over. I mean, it's not, you're not out, but I mean, it's not great. So ideally try to keep those up. And I feel like I'm missing something else. Oh, yes, you have a card, a little placard with an ability that you can use in the game to help you out. So it's pretty straightforward. Like, it's not super complicated. So on a turn, you're going to be like, okay, everyone, you're supposed to like randomly move it around without looking at it, your little controller. I had a
yeah,
hard time
jumble
with
it up a
this.
little bit.
Yeah, because of my nails. So after a while, I'm like, am I even moving it around? Like, whatever, it's fine. And then you go, 1, 2, 3, go. And then you try and do it in a way that it plays out that your card, if you wanted to move straight first, that you put that first in that second line. And then if you wanted to move diagonal to avoid a carpet, put that in the next spot. It's hard because you have to move things around quickly because other people are moving quickly, to make sure that things work out. And they have a stack of these little tiles, and you want to be the first one to grab, then the second one to grab, and then the third. But if you're last to grab, you end up, I think, losing a life or something like that. So then, after everyone's done, you got to give a countdown to that slow person to get moving, to have till 10 seconds and then finish up. Then you run through your program. And again, it's only those 2 lines. Oftentimes, you're just rushing to get it done. So you're like, oh, why would I do that and go on the carpet, which slows me down? It just so happened that's what was next in your line of programming. So you get the idea. So you do this until somebody reaches the end, or till, I guess, at the end of that round, and see who's made it across the finish line farther, and then that person wins. That's literally the game. It's it's silly fun. I actually really enjoyed it. I'm really bad at it. I think I stopped looking at the board after a while because I'm like, the more time I spend analyzing the board, everyone else is already almost finished programming and they're gonna start counting down, and that makes me stressed. Let's get something out versus nothing. I think I actually won our last game that we played, so I mean I didn't do that horribly. So heyo. Because you end up having to pass your controller around, so it's not like you can pick up where you left off. You got to pass it to somebody else, so you're gonna get a different controller altogether, so you don't know what you're starting with. Um, I really like this game a lot. I had only played it digitally, so I didn't realize that it was those slide um tiles, I guess. I don't know what to call them, but in the controller. I do wish those were bigger, but that could just be a me problem because I have nails and I found it a little hard
Mm.
to grab onto. My friend, as he describes his hands as banana hands, he said he too had a little bit of problems with it as well. So we had some, just, trying to get them sliding across. So that I would have liked a little bit bigger. That just could be a me thing. Even the symbols, I mean, they're pretty well documented on the tiles, but it would be nice just to have those a little bit bigger. I don't really have too many negative things to say because I mean all the tiles and the quality of the products were really good. It's very straightforward. The rules are very clear, and I like the fact that you're not booted out. You know, a lot of these games like, oh, you're out of life, you're gone. I hate that in games. This doesn't do that. It does give you an opportunity to kind of come back to life at the beginning of the next round. So for me, Tiny Turbo Cars was a pleasant surprise because it's a game I didn't think I would enjoy, and I did. But it also didn't overstay its welcome. It was quick. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm fully on board. I like it more than you do, I think. I
Probably.
love this game. I love programming games,
Yeah.
though, and I think that's a big difference between you and I. And the sliding puzzle made me really nervous because those little plastic puzzles, I've never been able to solve those as a kid. I'm just terrible at them. Like Immortals Phoenix Rising, they have like a sliding
Those
puzzle
are,
like
yeah,
element
those
in
are
that video
doozy.
game, and it would always stress me out. Thankfully, they're super simple. But I was nervous about that with Tiny Turbo Cars. And
Yep.
if you're like me, I will tell you because you only have to use those two center lines, it's much more forgiving
Sure.
than if you had to align everything in a perfect
Absolutely.
grid. So don't overly stress that. It's way more forgiving than that. And I flipping love it. I love the modular boards. I love all the variety and the different cars. It's adorable. The theme is adorable, and the programming and the racing just works so beautifully for me. So I like it even more than you do, Mandy, but it's much more up my alley, so to
Sure.
speak. So yeah,
That's fair. That's fair.
I'm glad you like it though.
Oh, thank you.
Alrighty. You know what's better than pizza, Mandy?
What? No pineapple on the pizza?
Oh, let's not. We're not gonna. No,
Okay.
no. Do
Sorry.
not start that on this show, Mandy. Stop it.
Okay, my bad.
I'll let it slide this time. If you try anything else, I got my eye on you.
Fair.
The only thing better than a pizza delivery is when it's a psychic pizza delivery
What?
in a ghost town. What?
Woo!
So, folks, if you're not aware of this, there is a board game called Psychic Pizza Deliverers Go to Ghost Town.
Yes.
And if that title does not at least capture your interest, you and I can't be friends right now. That's all I gotta say. Because that is an amazing name for a game.
It is.
Now, I actually became aware of this years ago because this was originally published in Japan from
Mhm.
One Draw Games. It's designed by Hayato Kisaragi, and the illustrations are by Ryo Nayamo. And I have a copy of the original in Japanese, and I never like
Oh.
it's quirky, right? That title alone is quirky. I
I'm
was
here for it.
absolutely surprised and delighted when All Play, formerly known as
Yeah.
BoardGameTables.com, picked it up for one of their lines and they they did their treatment and kickstarted it and things like that. So, Psychic Pizza Deliverers Go to Ghost Town, which I will likely shorten to like Psychic Pizza now,
That's
um,
fair.
is a one versus many hidden movement game. So what's going to happen is you actually use the box for this. So the box
Oh,
has the board grid on it, and players get dry erase boards that match the general layout, like the grid and things like that, and dry erase pens and things like that. And you're going to get a bunch of tokens, and the basically the mayor gets to lay out the town with where the houses are and where the pizzas are and where some other obstacles are and things like that. And then basically players take turns and they get to move on their little grid, which again, they don't know what you've set up. So they're kind of feeling their way around their grid, trying to find the pizza, fight off the ghosts, and deliver the pizza
makes
as
sense.
you do, right? I mean, it's just so banana pants, right? So you're going to be moving around, and then basically the mayor will tell you what's around you.
Right.
Or you can, instead of moving, you can say I'm going to attack to the left or the west, and then you find out if you cuz you think there's a ghost there. Are you attacking the ghost or not, and do you miss and things like that. And
Mhm.
all this gives information, right? And so all the other players are trying to not only track on their own board what's going on, but they're trying to kind of figure out where the opponents are too,
Right.
to see how that can help them inform the city grid that they're building out. Ultimately, there's also like special ability cards and things like that that come into play. There's a little bit more to it as well, but that's the basics of the game. And the pizza deliverers have 20 turns to
Mhm.
deliver the pizza successfully to win the game. Otherwise, the mayor wins the game. And there you go. It is wacky, a little offbeat, and I really enjoy it. I like that kind of I guess it's hidden movement. It's kind of
Okay.
deduction hidden movement. I'm not sure what category I'd really put this in.
Hmm.
I really enjoy it. It is challenging. One of the things All Play does with their games is they try to keep them very streamlined from a rules point of view, which I really respect. And I think that they overall do a great job of that. Psychic Pizza Deliverers Go to Ghost Town is a quirky enough game with some edge case scenarios that I think this one would have benefited from a slightly more robust rule book than
Uh,
what you get in the game. Uh, that's it just is what it is. So I wish that it was a little more robust, but I appreciate that they tried to keep it streamlined. If you like this type of game, this one's definitely worth checking out. All Play has a reputation for doing a lovely production, and if you and your friends can get into this kind of thing, I definitely recommend it. I had a lot of fun with it. Psychic Pizza Deliverers Go to Ghost Town.
it's what I wanted to try, but I just felt it wasn't gonna hit the table. I
I can see that. Yeah, I can.
yeah, I'm all sad, but I'll live vicariously through you. All right, well, last game that I'm going to talk about is, I guess it would be like a family type game, but I played it solo. So this is the solo perspective, and that's Flashback Zombie Kids, and it's designed by Baptiste Derez, Marc-Antoine Doyon, and the art is by Laure de Chateaubourg and Jennifer Matty and Michel Verdu, and it is published by Le Scorpion Masqué. It's for 1 to 4 players, plays in about 30 minutes, and it's about $34 Canadian, give or take. So this is just one in a kind of a series of zombie kids games. So this one is Flashback, and you're investigating in this game using a variety of cards. So you're going to have some of the big cards, which tell, I guess, the bigger picture. Actually, that's kind of funny. Bigger picture of the story, which it
Oh
does.
boy.
I know. And then you'll have little numbers on those cards that'll lead you to some kind of other smaller special cards that'll give you more insight or more things that kind of target in on the scene. And they'll be kind of say, well, look a little closer here. Can you find some connections? And I don't know if this is giving away. I don't want to give away too much because it's one you want to discover. But in the
Right,
first
right.
one specifically, and I think this one is not a spoiler, but it's literally um, first picture that you see is I think it's a girl, and then there's like a green arm grabbing her. So it's like, so it's some kind of aliens in the schoolyard sort of thing, and figuring out how did they get there, because it's more than one alien. I think that's as far as I want to go without ruining it. But there are other things in the game that will pop up later, and they come in little like little envelopes. So I think there's like some binoculars and like a flashlight and some other little fun bits that you'll get to play with in the game. So that's it's literally that. It kind of reminds me of oh, what do you call those games we play? Like Chronicles of Crime. Not
Mhm.
as to that extent, but something very
Right.
similar and just on a more like basic level. So it kind of fits for children, families who want to play. So it's not overly complex. Picture, okay, leads you to a card. Pick up that card. Look at that card. Leads you to another card. To help you figure out the puzzle and to talk about the story. Because at the end, you have to figure out what actually happened, and then you can tally and see, was I right on XYZ? And if not, maybe play it again, or you can move on to the next scenario. So this is cute. It was so cute. And I have to say, I mean, I did exceedingly well, but I think that's just because I watch a lot of crime shows. So I'm obsessed with investigations. That's a whole other thing. But what I liked about it, it was on a level that children, I think, would still enjoy it. And as someone who has a nephew who I'm pretty sure has ADHD like me, it's really hard for him to sit for games. But something like this, it's really colorful. We pull a card. Okay, tell me what you see. And then he wants to pull the next card and talk about the card. I think it keeps him engaged enough because it's not overly lengthy. Even if he decides to dip, as I like to say, my other nephew will hang out and we'll still continue to play. And then he can still pop back in and be like, okay, what happened? And then we can get him back up to speed, and then, can continue playing. So I appreciate those types of games because he's really hard to pin down. I get it. I relate. Totally understand. So if you like the series of the Zombie Kids, it's not any more difficult than those. I feel it's about the kind of the same level. It's just a slightly different type of gameplay with the cards and the investigations. So Flashback Zombie Kids for me, what I've played of it so far, I've really enjoyed it. I didn't go too much into the scenario because I don't want to give away too much, because you want to experience that for yourself or your family if you're playing with them. So definitely something I would recommend if you want to play as a family. I played it solo mostly, and for me it was, I don't want to say it was easy, but it was kind of easy. But I'm not the target audience for it.
Sure,
You
you're
know
an
what I
adult,
mean?
yeah.
So, but
A
it was still a
crime-obsessed adult.
there you go. But I still enjoyed my time playing it, and it was me playing it as someone who doesn't play solo games. It was pretty easy to follow. Like it wasn't hard. Here's a card, pull the next card, like I was saying. So, Flashback Zombie Kids. Sure, you could play it as an adult. I don't know if you'll find it challenging enough, but I definitely appreciate it as a game for children or with a family.
Awesome. Yeah, I have a copy and I really wanna play it with my 10-year-old, so
Yeah,
I'm
so we'll
glad that you
revisit
enjoyed it.
once you've had that
Yeah.
chance. Yeah.
Alright, to wrap up, one more solo game, Mandy, but this one's intended to be solo,
Yes.
and I know you've played it too.
I have. Nom
Numbsters.
nom nomsters.
Numbsters. Numbsters. Numbsters, like numbers
Yeah, I
monsters.
think I said nom. I meant num num num
Yeah,
numsters.
like a portmanteau.
Arr.
This is designed by Milan Zivo Zivkovic, and we have illustrations by Luke Flowers, and it's published by Buttonshy. This is one of their little wallet games, 18 card games. And basically, you're going to get a deck of cards, and it has numbers 1 through 18 on it, right?
Yeah.
And the number 8 is the mouth. The mouth. Ah, number
Literally
8,
looks
the
like that.
mouth.
Ah.
Shuffle up the cards. You're going to line up 6 cards in front of you or fan them in your hand. You can play it in bed if you want to and just, keep a fan of cards in your hand. And what you're going to do on your turn is draw a card from the remaining cards, put it on top, and then you can move one card or swap 2 cards in that grouping in that lineup. And then a numbster, a card, eats the other card. And typically, what you're going to do is the general rule is that when you have 2 cards in sequential order, like say a 11, 12,
Mhm.
the 11 eats the 12. The smaller number eats the larger number. The other option for numbsters to nom up is each card also has a special rule on it. So you can either just do the basic rule, smaller card eats the larger card, or you can eat according to the special rule of the card that's on top of the stack or in front of the fan or the lineup, as it were. So maybe it's, the small even number eats the largest odd number in the lineup.
Right.
There's a ton of different rules about values or odds and evens and things like that. And if those two cards are next to each other, they can eat instead. You lose the game if the number 8, the mouth, rah, 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 ever ends up on top of the pile at the end of your turn, or if you get down to 2 cards that can't chew down.
Right.
And you win the game if you end up with the mouth card with one other card on top of it. Huzzah, you've won. Game is real fun. I mean, it's real, shuffle up, lay it out, play it super quick. And I really enjoyed it. It's just one of those ones, Mandy. I played it like 5, 6 times the
Mhm.
first time I sat down to play it.
Yeah, yeah, me too.
It's just that quick and chompy. Also, I was getting a feel for what the cards are, right? What
Yeah,
rules were possible and trying to get more familiar so I could play more smartly as I went because
right.
that's something I wanted to do because gosh darn it, I wanted to win this game, which is I found to be fairly
It
challenging,
is. I still haven't
but not
won.
impossible.
No, no.
I think you definitely once you get to know the cards, you can make smarter decisions. I think in
Right,
your first games, if you win, it's a little bit of luck. As you play more and you get to know what cards are possible, then you start making better decisions.
right.
And I think they have something really, really cool here. It's smart, it's quick, it's easy to set up, and it's fun. Like I
Mhm.
just have fun. It's a really cool little puzzle. And when you lose, you just want to play it again until you can win. So I've really enjoyed Numpsters. It's one of my favorite solo wallet games, I think.
And it's pink.
And the wallet is pink. It is officially their first pink wallet,
I
Mandy.
mean, I was so happy because I have a pink gaming mat and I was playing it. I'm like, "What? This looks so good on my mat." And it was a good game. I have yet to win though. I've only gotten to like
It's
3
hard.
cards. It's hard.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe I was playing it wrong and I'm like, "No, I just suck."
No, I wouldn't say that. I think it's very challenging.
I'm
But the more you
kidding.
play, yeah, not it doesn't get easier, but at least you
No.
kinda are like, "No, I wanna hold out for this card," kinda thing.
Right, right, exactly. But like I think I got to that point where I was like, okay, if I move this, no wait, but then I don't have an even number to do this. And if I move this here, that's gonna put the monster card at the top. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, like and it took me like 5 minutes to figure out that I wasn't winning this game, but I refused to let it go.
Awesome.
Oh well.
That sounds like you.
Yeah.
So that's Numpsters.
Nice. Good
All
choice.
right, Mandy, we have a kind of a I think for you and me, a special game pie coming up,
Mm,
so let's get that served up.
yeah.
Well, folks, for many of you, you might remember that March 8th was International Women's Day. And if you are on social media or on boardgamegeek.com, you will see a lot of people working to celebrate the women that work in the board games industry, which, of course, Mandy, this is a topic that's pretty near and dear to our hearts. Uh,
Absolutely.
both, as women and also as women of color, which are not super common
No.
still in the board game industry. So it was really fun to see those things highlighted
Hmm.
throughout the sphere and definitely some calls for action to try to continue the growth of women in the industry, which is, of course, something that I think both of us deeply, deeply appreciate.
Absolutely.
So, as such, we wanted to make this game pie about games designed by women, which is a little bit fraught and we understand that. And so we are doing this with as much respect and in the good spirit that we can. Um some of these are co-designs. I think
Right.
that one of the things Mandy and I noticed is that as many women as we see, there are still not a plethora of
Right.
individual people who identify as women who are credited as solo designers on games, certainly not big budget games, and certainly not games that necessarily climb to the top 100 of boardgamegeek.com, which of
Absolutely.
course is a very specific audience and only has so meaning
Right.
much meaning. Meanwhile, of course, there are people like Susan McKinley Ross and games like you and I were just talking about how Jenga is designed by a woman and
Yeah.
Quirkle and there's all these mass market games that have a ton of women behind the scenes that aren't quite as recognized in the kind of the hardcore hobby scene of something like a boardgamegeek.com and wanted to mention those as well here. So, thanks everybody for listening to our game pie. We know that it's, the format is limited. We decided not to extend it past, into a supersized pie this time.
Right.
But I definitely encourage you all to take a little bit of time and go online and take a look at uh, all of the different pieces that were written recently about women operating in the board game sphere, trying to make awesome board games for us to play.
Yeah. All right.
Mandy, anything else to add
Yeah.
before you jump in?
Yeah, so my list was curated. I wanted to do a little shout out to Elizabeth Hargrave,
Yes.
who put together a really lovely list on BGG of not just women, but I think racialized groups and other marginalized groups together on a list of games in BGG. So thank you. I took a look at that and definitely found a lot of games there that even were new to me that I didn't know who designed. So thank you for that. All right, I'm gonna jump in with my first game, which brings back many memories, actually. And Netters, I don't know if you still listen to the podcast or not, but you are the one, so Annette, who introduced me to this game, and it's called Alpaca Paca Paca. And it is as cute as it sounds. And this is designed by, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing, Peak, and I believe this is a Japanese designer. And the game comes in a really small box, and you're literally trying to make your alpaca have like the longest neck, but with like the most jewels and no poopy neck, as I like to call it. So no dirty necks, otherwise that gives you negative points. It's a really simple game, but it's just so darn cute, and I've had so many fun memories with it. It had to be on my list. So Alpaca Paca Paca by Peak.
I love that game.
So good.
First slice up for me is Nyctophobia, designed by Catherine Stipple. This is this is a laudable game to me, no matter who the designer is. And as I've talked about on the podcast before, we play a lot of games,
Mhm.
and I highly value uniqueness
Yeah.
in a game. And here we have Nyctophobia, a great example. Catherine tells the story about how she designed this game because she played games with her blind uncle, and
Right.
she wanted a game that she could play uninhibited, where he had a bit of an advantage as opposed to how often it was the other way around. Nyctophobia is a game in which you have plastic pieces on the board, and it's a little bit of, again, like hidden movement where you are trying to get away from a bad guy, like an axe murderer, literally,
Yeah.
but it's all tactile, and you put on a blindfold, and you have the pieces on the board, and players are literally feeling the pieces, and the different shapes and sizes of the pieces indicate where you are on the board and where other things are around you. It is very uncommon to have a game that integrates the sense of touch this way. It is shockingly nerve-wracking to play with that blindfold on, and I think there was a lot to process psychologically there on a number of levels. It's very, very cool. So, Nyctophobia, if you haven't heard of it or if you haven't checked it out, I think it's still available. I think it was available at Target for a while too.
Yeah, I think
Definitely
so.
one worth checking out.
I have not played this. I have been trying to find someone who owned the game because we don't have Target here.
Mm,
So this is one that I've been trying to play on my list. So I think I'll be going to a convention soon, and I believe Catherine goes. So Catherine is there. I'm gonna say
that'd be
you need to
cool.
play this. Okay, well, next on my list is actually a co-design, and celebrating women. The one of the co-designers is Flaminia Brasini, and the game is Coimbra. And this is a
Okay.
game. Oh my gosh, I played this hard, hard, hard. And any game where you have dice and you're using like placement of dice to take actions, I am here for this. Love, love, love. And I think actually memory here. I played this for the first time with Eric and Tom from the Dice Tower. I think I remember, I think Tom won, but I think I came ahead slightly ahead of Eric. I don't know if it was at the end of the game or at one point, and I was like, oh, oops, I won. And Eric's like, what do you mean, oops, you won? Like it was an accident. Anyway, we had a good laugh about it. It was a very good memory for me, but I actually really also enjoy the game. So if this is a game you haven't tried
Great game.
and you do like those kind of like dice placement type games, and other aspects of the game, it almost has like that kind of like management of your tracks and stuff, which I enjoy.
Yeah.
Coimbra is a very nice one to try.
Awesome. Next slice up for me is Field of the Cloth of Gold.
I don't know this.
This is a Hollandspiel game designed by Amabel Holland,
Hmm.
and it is a two-player only game. I actually think I reviewed it on a podcast
You
at some point.
probably have. I just don't think I've played it.
Yeah, it's
Oh.
it's fascinating because there is an element where you've got these tiles and you're collecting tiles, but where there's a trade-off because your move to get stuff will also gift stuff to your opponent.
Right.
And there is so much tension, and the decision space in how you want to balance that out is just so compelling and fascinating. And of course, Amabel and their partner Mary, former partner Mary, are driving forces behind Hollandspiel Games, and they have an incredible lineup that swing all over the place. Like Field of Cloth of Gold, I think is very approachable for a from a two-player only game. They
Mhm.
do very heavy train games and kind of hex games and all this other stuff as well. But Field of Cloth of Gold is a great, very cool two-player only game that I highly recommend.
Okay, very cool. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Which may be why you don't know it, Mandy, because I
Two
know
player.
two-player only games kinda
Yeah, they kind of
are
throw
harder for
like
you.
yeah, so
Yeah.
it's hard to get played. Okay, but still, it sounds interesting. Next on my list is Hello Canadian is Creature Comforts designed by Roberta Taylor. Always nice to see a fellow Canadian on the list. And Creature Comforts is a game we've talked about before, and it's another one of those games where you have dice and you're placing dice in this very cute town to take your actions, and there are cards that are going to help you get resources that you need in order to do so. So, Creature Comforts for me, I really enjoyed this game. Really nice to see a fellow Canadian on the list as well. So there you go.
I love your Canadian pride, it's awesome.
Yay!
Next title up for me, next slice, Assembly. Assembly is designed by Janice and Stu Turner, and this is a solo puzzle
Mhm.
game, and you basically have this ring with different tokens that match the different items, and you're trying to get everything matched up. It's like got a space station theme, and it's really great.
Mhm.
It's an engaging and challenging puzzle game. It's kind of got a very stark, cool
Yep.
graphic aesthetic that goes well with the space station theme, and I've really enjoyed it. There's also, or there used to be, I'm not sure if it's still live, but there used to be an app version that was really easy to play, and then also physical versions available as well. And really enjoy that one, Assembly.
Assembly. I have this one. I haven't played it yet. But it is one I want to play. It actually looks very cool
Yeah, it is
design.
cool.
And last on my list, I know I've talked about this a few times on a BGG podcast. I've talked about it in our podcast, but Votes for Women by Tori Brown. And yeah, I honestly didn't think it was a game that I would be interested in, but then I was like, no. And I saw the content about women's rights, the suffragette movement, good and the bad. I was like, what? I love having that information in a game that actually is trying to represent what happened. I mean, it's as thematic as it gets, and I appreciate it. So Votes for Women was excellent, and that's probably why I talk about it so much because I really enjoyed it.
And last but certainly not least, and honestly, this game has made a number of pies over the time for me because I love the game so much, but I had to include it here, and that is Red Cathedral. This is a co-design Llama Dice. Llama Dice, the driving forces are Isra, and then of course Sheila is part of that Llama Dice pair, and they are phenomenal designers. And Red Cathedral is an excellent, excellent uh, dice placement game, similar where you're moving dice to gather resources and build out the cathedral. Love the game, love a lot of games that Llama Dice puts out. And Sheila is definitely a designer that you should be keeping an eye on because their designs continue to be just of stellar quality, including Red Cathedral. So
Oh,
there
so
you
good.
go.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have to admit, very nice. But and before we finish off, I feel like I haven't been singing as much on our podcast. And don't worry, I'm not gonna make your ears bleed. But because we're celebrating women, it was the other day I was working and I was humming a song, and I was like, wow, I actually hadn't looked in on this artist for a long time, but they're really popular. So I don't know in the States if she was very popular, but in Canada she's well known, and her name was Susan Aglukark. And Aglukark, excuse me. And she's a Canadian singer, and she does a mixture of like Inuit folk music with country and pop. And there's one, I don't know if anybody else, but I'd be sitting at my desk, Hina na ho ho hine. And it just gets in your head. It's so catchy. It's an older song, but she's still around. And I just wanted to shout out to Susan Aglukark, not that she listens to our podcast, but if you haven't heard her
Yeah.
music,
That would
it's,
be amazing.
it's pretty good.
Maybe put a link in the show notes for us on that one
Yeah,
because
I
I would
will.
love to
It's
take a listen. That sounds awesome.
yeah. So I really enjoy her stuff. So yeah.
All right, folks, the pie has been served. That means we have wrapped another episode of Salt and Sass. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey, it's not too late to chime in on that large group asynchronous game thread on Board Game Geek. You can also send us emails with any questions or comments you have. You can reach us at saltandsassgames@gmail.com. Or if you want to chime in on async games or favorite games designed by women or any other topic that hits you around our show, you can of course go to our Board Game Geek Guild. That's guild number 4131, or search up Salt and Sass in their guild section.
Yeah, and of course, the socials. So you can find us, well, if you're watching us here on YouTube, but also you can find Salt and Sass Games on Twitch. So YouTube and Twitch, Salt and Sass Games. You can find us also on the Twitter at Salt N Sass Games. So that's Salt, the letter N, Sass Games. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter as at 613 Mandi. That's Mandi with an I. What about you, Suzanne?
And you can find me everywhere on every social media platform as 425 Suzanne with a S.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much for being here and listening and joining us for another episode. As always, it is a pleasure and privilege to be part of your extended gaming family and to have you as part of our extended gaming family. We truly appreciate and enjoy having you here. Next episode, episode 15, join us again. And hopefully, Mandi, we're working on getting some experts. We've actually got a couple of folks that have been like, hey, we're ready. And so I'm
Yes.
excited for that.
Exactly.
And all of that good stuff. So until next episode, stay healthy, stay happy, stay hydrated, and play some games, everyone.
Bye. À la prochaine. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This episode was sponsored by Druid City Games, where player experience comes first. Check out all of their great games at druidcitygames.com. If you'd like to support the podcast, please check us out on coffee.com/Salt and Sass Games. Thank you for your support. Salt and Sass is produced with love by Suzanne and Mandi, and we'll be back next episode with more salt, more sass, and more games.